My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 59 years old. I've been a widow for almost a decade now and live in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in Oregon. I've worked as an office manager at a mid-sized law firm for nearly 20 years. Raised 2 kids, Emily. My daughter, who just turned 32, and Luke, my 29-year-old son. Most of my adult life, I've done what I thought every mother is supposed to do. Give everything so your kids don't have to feel the struggle you went through. And I thought I was doing okay. That is, until last Tuesday, I got an email. No subject line, just Emily sitting in my inbox. My heart did a little flip. I thought maybe she was sending an update about her wedding or something sweet. We'd just talked a few weeks back about her plans. I had already sent over $30, 0 to help her lock in the venue, the photographer, and the florist she'd been dreaming about since college. But then I opened the message, and the smile I had faded fast. Mom, that's how it began. Not dear Mom or hi Mom, just Mom, cold, distant, like a formality. She went on to explain that after finalizing the guest list with her fiancé, Andrew, and his family, they decided it was best for me to attend the ceremony virtually, from home, via Livestream. She mentioned how Andrew's mother was very particular about the guest count and wanted to keep things intimate. And then came the final line, the one that made my stomach twist. If you want to be a part of it, you can watch through the Google Meet link we've set up. Should be just like being there. Lol. Just like being there. LO. I sat staring at my laptop, coffee cooling next to me. I didn't cry. My hands didn't shake. But something inside me shifted, like the ground cracked open underneath me. And somehow, I was still standing. I typed a reply, just 4 words. Sure, enjoy your big day. No emojis, no questions, no sadness, just quiet resignation. And I knew deep down those 4 words would be louder than any fight or tear. That email wasn't just about a wedding. It was a wake-up call. I closed the laptop, finished my coffee, and got ready for work like it was any normal Tuesday. But it wasn't. That was the day I stopped pretending that everything I gave had meant something. That was the day I realized things had changed. The drive to work was silent. Spring in Oregon still had a bite in the air, but I didn't notice it. My mind kept circling one question. How did we get here? Caldwell Walker Law had been my work home for 18 years. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. And after my husband passed when the kids were teenagers, steady was all I could manage. I remember trying to juggle bills while standing in front of our old washing machine, figuring out how to pay for groceries and still afford Emily's college deposit. I picked up extra shifts, skipped weekends, gave up vacations. Every birthday party I missed, every new outfit I didn't buy, it was for them, for Emily, for Luke. Because I kept telling myself, there'll be time for me later, but there never was. Emily changed her major twice. I paid the tuition difference. She moved to New York for a job that barely lasted a year. I covered her deposit and airfare. When she was heartbroken at 27, I flew out and made her tea in that cold little apartment. When Luke wanted to buy a house with his fiancée, I co-signed the loan and wrote a $10 0 check without blinking. I didn't keep score. That's what moms do, right? But that email, it made me feel like a line item, like I had expired, like I was only needed when I was useful. Back at the office, my boss Robert dropped by my desk. He's the kind of man who remembers your birthday and how you take your coffee. He took one look at me and said, "You look like you've seen a ghost," before placing a latte from the cafe downstairs onto my desk. I wanted to spill everything, tell him my daughter just uninvited me from her wedding. But instead, I smiled and said, "Just didn't sleep well." He didn't press, just gave me a nod and walked away. That small moment, the coffee, the quiet, it almost broke me. After all the mental noise that morning, that gesture reminded me that I still existed, that I still mattered, even if only quietly. Then around lunch, my phone buzzed. Emily. Voicemails. Texts. Mom, please answer. We need to talk. This isn't funny. I didn't respond. For once in my life, I let the silence answer for me. Maybe it was time to stop always being the one who answers. Maybe it was time to stop begging for a seat at a table I helped build. That afternoon, I made a decision. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I'd do something stronger. I'd act. After work, I didn't go straight home. I drove to First Federal Bank, a few blocks down. Carlos, the branch manager, had helped me over the years with everything from setting up savings accounts to adjusting my retirement contributions. He always greeted me like I mattered. Mrs. Collins, he said, standing up. What can I help you with today? I sat down. Calm. Too calm. I need to cancel a wire transfer, I said. His fingers paused on the keyboard. The one to the Napa venue. Yes, that one. He looked surprised. Depending on the timing, there may be a cancellation fee. May I ask why? The circumstances have changed. He searched his screen. You're in luck. It hasn't processed yet. Just in time. He looked at me again. Are you sure, Mrs. Collins? That's $50. Annuals. I nodded. I was sure. $50,000. That's what I had planned to send next, on top of the $30. We're already gone. $80. 00 total. For a wedding I wasn't even allowed to attend. I signed the paperwork and left the bank without hesitation. When I got home, there were 9 missed calls from Emily. 2 from Luke. 1 voicemail simply said, Mom, please don't do this. I turned off my phone. In the kitchen, I reached for a bottle of red wine I'd been saving since Thanksgiving. I never opened it. Emily canceled her trip last minute, said work stuff. I poured a glass, sat on the porch, let the spring evening wrap around me. And for the first time in a long while, I thought about what I wanted, not as a mother, not as a widow, but as a woman. That evening, I sat on the porch, glass of wine in hand, watching the sun dip below the treetops. Everything around me was still birds calling in the distance, the wind nudging the leaves, a neighbor's dog barking faintly 2 houses down. But inside, something was stirring, something long buried, finally waking up. I thought about the birthdays I planned alone, the holidays where I cooked for 4, hoping they'd show, only for it to be 2, the dinners I left in warmers, the vacations I kept postponing for next year. I thought about the car I drove for 14 years, the cracked heels on my favorite black flats I never replaced, the shoes I didn't buy, the rest I never took. And then I thought about her, Andrew's mother, a woman who had barely known Emily for a few years. Yet her opinion had more weight than mine, the woman who raised Emily, who stood beside her through every heartbreak, through every failure, through every dream that collapsed and rebuilt. It wasn't even about the wedding anymore. It was about who gets to count as family and who doesn't. I thought about the way Emily ended that email. Should be just like being there. LOL. Was it a joke, a defense mechanism, a casual cruelty? And then I thought about myself, not as someone's mom or someone's wife, but just as Margaret, a woman who wanted peace, dignity, to be seen, not just used. That night, around 9, the doorbell rang. At first, I thought about ignoring it, but something told me to open the door. It was Luke, still in his office clothes, tie loosened, sleeves pushed up. He looked tired, annoyed, holding his phone like a weapon. Mom, he said before I could even greet him, stepping inside without waiting. Why aren't you answering your phone? Emily's freaking out. I closed the door behind him. Calmly, hello to you, too. He started pacing. She says you're refusing to come to the wedding. That you're being, he hesitated, difficult. I raised an eyebrow. Difficult. For not attending an event I was uninvited from. She didn't mean it like that, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Andrew's parents are traditional. They're covering most of the wedding. You know how that works. I laughed. But it wasn't amused? Traditional. I've already sent $30,000, and I was about to send 50,000 more. That's not tradition. That's a bribe. He froze. Wait, you were sending another 50, I said, sipping my wine, but not anymore. Luke's face drained of color. Mom, they're counting on that money. The venue, the catering, not my problem anymore. I interrupted. Of course, it's your problem, he snapped. She's your daughter, and I'm her mother, I replied, my voice low but steady. A mother who was told to stay home and watch her daughter's wedding through a screen. He threw his hands up. You always make everything about yourself. And just like that, the dam broke. Get out, I said. What? You heard me. Luke, get out of my house. He blinked. Mom, I've given everything I have to both of you. I've loved you through every failure, covered your mistakes, picked you up without keeping score, and now I'm the villain in a story I wrote with love. No, not anymore. He stood there for a moment, stunned, then slowly turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him quiet, but it felt like thunder. I stood there, wine in hand, heart pounding, and then I realized something surprising. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next morning, I woke to 43 missed calls and a string of messages from Emily. The tone started sharp. Mom, we need to talk. Why are you doing this? Then came the guilt. This is childish. You're punishing me. Then panic. The venue called. The payment didn't go through. We're going to lose everything if it's not handled today. Andrew's parents are furious. They say this proves they were right about you. And then, at 3, it's Yentian, Emmy, and a final text. I don't understand why you're doing this to me. I smiled into my morning coffee. Of course she didn't understand. Emily had grown up on my sacrifices like they were air invisible, unacknowledged, but always there. She never asked how the rent was paid. She never wondered where the stability came from. She just assumed it would always be there. That I would always be there, but not this time. Later that morning, while reviewing some contracts, I saw a new message pop up in my personal inbox. Subject, please don't ruin my wedding. I opened it. Mom, she began, I know you're upset about the Livestream situation, but this is extreme. We've lost the deposit. If we don't pay the rest by tonight, Paris time, the caterer walks. Andrew's parents are beyond upset. They think you're being unreasonable. Please don't do this. We can talk about letting you attend, but we need the funds first. And there it was. Not an apology, not reflection, just a negotiation, as if my presence was a prize they could dangle at the end of a stick, as if seeing my own daughter get married was contingent on how generous I felt. I didn't reply. I closed the email and went back to work. Around lunchtime, Robert stopped by again. Lunch, he asked. That new Italian place opened down the block. I almost declined as I always did, but something in me was different. Maybe it was the clarity of the last 24 hours. Maybe I just wanted to sit somewhere that didn't want anything from me. So I said yes. Over pasta, he talked about his grandkids. How exhausting but beautiful it was to chase them around the yard. His eyes softened when he mentioned his youngest learning to say Grandpa for the first time. Then he looked at me. Forgive me, Margaret, he said, but you seem lighter today. And for the first time in a long time, I told the truth. I told him about Emily, about the email, the money, the live stream, the decision. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush to fix anything. He just listened. And when I finished, he said something I'll never forget. Sometimes the hardest part of love is drawing the line, especially with the ones you've given the most to. He reached across the table and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. I think you did the right thing. And for the first time, I believed that, too. That afternoon, I returned to my desk feeling something I hadn't felt in years: clarity. The calls and texts kept pouring in. Emily, Luke, even a few numbers I didn't recognize. But I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence was speaking for me, louder than anything I could have said. Later that evening, as the sky turned a soft shade of lavender and the streetlights blinked on one by one, I pulled into my driveway. The porch light flicked on automatically, casting a warm glow across the steps. At first, everything looked quiet, peaceful. But then I saw someone sitting on the porch. A young woman stood up as I approached, brushing invisible lint from her coat. Her face was familiar, even though I hadn't seen it in years. "Mrs. Collins," she said gently. "Sophia?" I blinked. She nodded. "Sorry to show up like this. I didn't know how else to find you." I unlocked the door. "Come in." "Want some tea?" She followed me inside. Her eyes scanned the walls, the hallway, the kitchen. You could tell the place brought back memories. Sophia had been Emily's best friend since 5th grade, the kind of girl who spent whole weekends at our house, laughing in sleeping bags and eating too many cookies. I filled the kettle and leaned against the counter. "Emily sent you." Sophia hesitated, then sighed. "She's a mess. The venue's gone. The florist pulled out. Andrew's parents are threatening to cancel everything." I stayed quiet, placing 2 mugs on the counter. The kettle whistled behind me. "She's panicking," Sophia continued. "She knows she messed up. She just doesn't know how to fix it." I stirred the tea slowly. "So why are you here?" "To fix it for her." Sophia shook her head. "No, I'm here to ask you something. Is there anything she can say or do to change your mind?" I paused. Let the question linger in the air. Would an apology undo the feeling of being excluded from your own daughter's life? Would it erase the sting of being treated like an ATM machine, a checkbook with feelings? Would a few sorries fix the ache of being told your love wasn't enough unless it came with a wire transfer? I looked at Sophia, still young, still full of hope. "No," I said softly. "There isn't." Her shoulders slumped. "Not even if she apologizes." I handed her a mug. "Words are easy, Sophia, especially when people are scared. But real love doesn't show up only when the money runs out. Real love doesn't forget you until they need something." She looked down at her tea, nodded slowly. "I get it," she whispered. "Even if she doesn't, I'm not angry anymore." I said, "Just done." Sophia sat quietly for a while. Then she stood up, placed her empty mug in the sink, and turned to face me. "I hope one day she understands what she lost," she said. "Thank you for always being kind to me, even when you didn't have to be." I smiled. "Take care of yourself." She gave me a gentle hug and slipped out into the night. And just like that, I closed the door on a version of myself I had carried for far too long. The mother who gave endlessly, who never said no, who sacrificed without pause. A few weeks passed. The wedding never happened, not like they had planned. Anyway, Luke told me later they scrambled to put something together in Andrew's parents' backyard. It was small, rushed. Only a handful of relatives came. I wasn't invited. And this time, I didn't need to be. A few days after that, Emily sent me one last email. It was long, emotional, rambling, full of half apologies and excuses. She said she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was overwhelmed, that Andrew's family put her in an impossible position, that she thought I would understand. I read it once, then I archived it, not because I was angry, but because I was at peace. There's a strange kind of peace that comes with finally letting go, not letting go in a fit of rage, not storming out or slamming doors, but letting go because you finally realize your worth, because you understand that love doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. For the first time in decades, I woke up without that familiar weight in my chest, the invisible list of things to do for everyone else, the sense that someone somewhere needed something from me. I made a new rule. If my presence is negotiable, then so is my effort. I still go to work. I still manage the office. But now, I come home and do things that fill me up, not drain me. I read novels again. I joined a pottery class. I go for long walks. I have dinner with people who don't care what I can give them. They just enjoy being with me. And I've learned something I wish I had known sooner. You can love people with your whole heart and still choose to protect your peace. You can be a good mother, a good woman, a kind person, and still say no. You can walk away, not because you're cruel, but because you're finally brave enough to stop settling for crumbs. If this story hits home for you, if you've ever felt taken for granted or sidelined in someone else's life, let me tell you this: you're not alone. You're not selfish for wanting to be seen. You're not heartless for drawing a line. You are allowed to matter to yourself, even if it means mattering less to others. So if you've ever found yourself pouring from an empty cup, carrying the weight of other people's comfort, and calling it love, maybe this is your sign to stop, to choose yourself, to finally give the kindest love there is, the one you give to yourself. If you related to this story, leave a comment below. Let's talk about it. Like this video if it gave you strength, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind you you are not alone, because sometimes the quietest strength is saying enough and meaning it.